Hi, everyone. Thank y'all for joining us for our beef brunch news update for Tuesday, February 6th. I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Vince for our Central and South updates.
Thank y'all for having me today. It's bright, sunshiny, and north wind following a 2-inch rain on Saturday as we visited before we started recording here. In the last 2 weeks, if we'd had half the amount of rain we've had in the last 2 weeks, we'd have probably made pretty close to a full hay crop this year in 23. So it's been very graceful to have the rain we have. In fact, I was doing a presentation at Equine Farm Friday before last, and it was showering and misting all day. And one of the local veterinarians was up there talking about horse equine repro, and he said, "This is a miserable day." I said, I stopped him while he was talking. I said, "No, it's not." I said, "It's a beautiful day." I said, "If you're trying to make hay," he said, "I guess you have a point." So we've got, a lot of cattle are grazing winter pastures right now. Some are getting short. Some producers have top dressed, and we're seeing some where that has occurred. We're seeing some accelerated growth and a lot of green up. We were, been in and out of the 70s for the most part the last 2 weeks with this rainfall. Tonight, I think we'll be down in the upper 30s tonight and tomorrow night, but they're calling for, near 70 degrees or just above, through the end of the week, and then more rain on Saturday and Sunday as we approach, for South Louisiana. Mardi Gras is a huge deal here, so a lot of folks will be out and about, and they're calling for a very pretty weather with lows in the 40s on Tuesday morning and mid 60s on and sunshine on Tuesday. So should be a nice event for people to get out and do their thing as far as the celebration is concerned. But cattle prices, I'm sure Lee maybe will touch on this because Lee's more in tune to the markets than I am. But locally, just kind of reading some of the reports and talking to some of the producers, there's the number of cattle going to the barns or have lightened up considerably, thank God, because we sent a lot of cattle to the barns through the fall and the winter months, but prices are high. Looking at the futures market earlier today, and we're seeing a slight drop in futures, but the local cash markets are pretty high as far as what cows need to get there, and bulls that are being killed. The prices are still really high. So just sustaining. Bulls are going out right now. There's been some bull markets sales here lately. The state Angus sale took place in Mansura last Saturday or a week ago Saturday, and that market was pretty good. I don't know the exact average, but the high was well over $10,000 for the high selling bull, and a lot of bulls sold in that $5,000 to $6,000 range. So good bulls are not going to be inexpensive, so to speak, with the calf market the way it is. So we talked about a couple of beef news updates a while back about getting your calving boxes together. Most people talk to one local veterinarian today. Most people that have a December, January calving run are getting to the end, 80 to 90% calved at this point. But we'll be seeing some spring calves coming along here as we get to the end of February, March, and April. So keep those calving boxes filled with OB gloves and lube and clean chains and the jack, because when that local vet told me he's seen some, for whatever reason, and he couldn't explain it to me, but he said environmentally it's got to be impacting the calving weights are slightly up for whatever reason. From his own practical experience, he's got a calving ease bull that he uses on his own heifers, and he said he just calved out his 5th crop out of him, and those calves out of those heifers were up 5 to 10 pounds. I had to pull a calf of my own this morning out of a heifer, out of a negative birth weight bull that the calf was not, he didn't make it through the pulling process, but was big, so be cautious of that. Keep those heifers, if you're calving heifers or cows that are going to have trouble, keep them close to the working pens to eliminate yourself some trouble trying to get those delivered. So with that being said, it's muddy out there now again. So it's going to be a miserable trip if you do have to get one in the pen and pull it, but keep them close by where you can manage things moving forward. Keep some antibiotic on hand based on a vet-client relationship that you probably have in place. because if we get a big swing in temperatures, we're just in February, so we had some thunder roll through last night with a little storm. Y'all probably experienced that in North Louisiana. A lot of hail came down with this particular storm, and the old saying goes, you have thunder in February means ice and snow in April. So we're a long ways from finishing our winter period. So, but weather's conducive for growing green grass, and ryegrass stands are improving with this, season, I guess out of season weather. We've had 70-degree weather, so hopefully that continues, because by golly, there's just a few bales of hay at everybody's turn row. There's just a few bales of hay left. Hay is extremely short, as we've talked about all along, and we're at the end. So you may want to spend a little bit of that money you have saved up on some nitrogen fertilizer, get that grass really greened up before we move into the spring run of calving and getting those cows producing some milk. So it's about where we're at. Well, we've had some very much needed rains. We're starting to see some stock or ponds here, and as it's stated in this part of the country, stock tanks up in north and you get into Texas. But our surface waters, our canals, and our drainage systems are starting to fill with water. So that's a good thing as we move into the spring months. Hopefully that continues to be the trend. Then we start with a good spring and have a good run of our warm season grass to make ample hay supplies for 24. So it's about where I'm at here in the central part of the state, and we just came back from the Southwest District Livestock Show. Got to visit with all our friends down there, and they're blessed with the rains, because all that marshy area south of I-10, that's big grazing areas for Calcasieu and Cameron and Vermilion parishes. They were bone dry up until here recently. So that's a blessing for them, because they rely on a lot of surface water from there, fresh water for not only the cattle and grazing cattle, but there's a lot of rice grown in that area. And there was a lot of skepticism whether they built a plant any rice this year because of saltwater intrusion. So hopefully they continue to get the rains along the Gulf Coast to deplete some of those salty issues. So it's about where we're at for the south and central part of the state.
Thank you. You've got me intrigued, because here I've been saying heat stress usually leads to smaller calves, and it's not what y'all are seeing there. So my wheels are spinning now. I'm curious to try to think about why that might be. But
some of the conversation we had, because of the lack of rainfall, which our forages are normally so water filled, they may have extracted nutrients from the soils that they don't ordinarily tap into under some drought stress. And I think me and the vet that I spoke to both agreed that, the cattle, we were short on forage, but the cattle stayed in pretty good body condition scores throughout the ordeal. So he said you may have a point there that, those forages tapped in to some nutrients that they don't normally get into. So I don't know.
Interesting. And I should have mentioned too, before I sent it over to Vince, but obviously if you're watching this, Brittany's not with us today. She went and was doing a livestock and forage forum over in the Point Capee Parish. So she was over there speaking at that today and wasn't able to jump on with us, but I appreciate her doing that, because I wasn't able to make it down to that event. So she's helping out with that. I've got, for her update is the events that we've been talking about. And so I'll cover those here in a little bit. I wanted to tie in, before I turn it over to you, Trip, I want to touch on something that Vince mentioned. So talking about pulling calves, and as we're getting into calving or finishing up calving, means we're moving into thinking about breeding as well. And so this morning at the Hill Farm, we were doing pelvic area measurements on heifers. I know that's a very underutilized management technique. It's very cheap, and it's not hard to learn how to do. It's something that growing up, we never did it. But if you end up pulling enough calves on heifers, it's something you start thinking about implementing into your operation. So I know a lot of people did not keep many heifers this past year, just due to lack of forages and that sort of thing. But if you are breeding heifers for the first time, you're thinking about that. I know you've all heard the horror stories of heifers calving too early or having difficulty calving. It's not all on the bull. It's on how you develop those heifers and if they're the right size. So if you have any questions about that, need anybody to look at your heifers, anything in relation to that, please reach out to one of us and we'll be happy to help with that, or reach out to whatever agent's closest to you. But in respect to that, start thinking about breeding season as well, and getting ready for that to kick off here shortly. I know we're ordering stuff for AI supplies and all of that good stuff, getting it planned out. So with that, Trip, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you for our Northeast region.
All right, everybody. We actually have had a pretty happening couple weeks in the Northeast region. We just wrapped up our 84th annual Northeast District Livestock Show. And I'd like to take a moment to really tip my hat to the young producers that put a lot of hard work into getting these show projects ready and coming to town with them. And all the lessons that they've learned are the things that help make good producers. And after spending several days with them and getting to visit with a lot of them, you know, it's easy to be doom and gloom about the future of agriculture in Louisiana and in this country. But whenever you talk to some of these kids that really get it and understand what the job is and the challenges that they're up against and see the excitement that they have in facing these challenges, really helps you have a lot of faith for the future of agriculture in Louisiana. I also really enjoyed getting to visit with a lot of the producers that come and support this event. I want to say thank you to all the supporters of the event, but really enjoyed getting to spend some time with these guys and hear what's going on their operations and the things that they're concerned about and the struggles that they're facing. One thing I've noticed agriculturally speaking, the last couple of weeks, so we're now 2 weeks away from the major ice event that we've had, and I'm certain everybody's finally got the last of their water floats swapped out that they didn't even know were leaking that were on the backside of their place. But I've seen just a little bit of damage as a result of the ice that was laying on our ryegrass. Some varieties handled it perfectly well. Some varieties struggle with it. Gulf's one that I've seen that has had a little bit of issues with it. Oftentimes it's just taller plants that have some browning to them that can be grazed off. You got to get that growth off of it to let the light in, to allow the photosynthesis to take place, to let the grass bounce back. But some plants have been stunted. There's going to be reduced growth from it on some of these plants. If you were thinking about making an application of fertilizer coming up, as it warms up and as it dries up, make sure that you're investing your money putting fertilizer on a healthy stand of grass. You want to see you get the maximum amount you can back from the investment on the fertilizer. But that's something a lot of guys are going to have on their mind as it dries up. As Vince alluded to earlier, we've gotten quite a bit of rain recently. It's been the land of extremes here the last little while. We went from being dry as the Sahara to frozen over to now in my travels, the Beth River and Lafourche are out of their banks, which is something I hadn't seen in quite a while. So we've got a lot of water standing in low-lying areas, which has been great for us in a lot of ways. We've gotten a lot of recharge. Our subsoil moisture is catching up. There's more than adequate topsoil moisture, but it's pretty soggy around here. So there's a lot of places where field work is not able to take place yet because it needs to dry out just a little bit more. But on the cow side, we've got a lot of people in the full swing of things with their calving. As Vince stated, it's a good idea to have your contingency plans in place for if you have to pull a calf. And it's a great thing to have a relationship with a veterinarian that can help you when you run into issues. You want to have that relationship established before you need that relationship established. And Vince laid out some reasons why that's important. Guys, that is pretty well all I have for our Northwest region update. Or excuse me, our Northeast region update.
Which means it's time for Lee to do the Northwest region update.
You could have kept going, Trip. That's probably a better update than I could have given. Glad to be with you all here today. Kind of ditto on what both Vince and Trip have alluded to as far as weather conditions. Ample rainfall over much of the area. I think everybody has gotten an abundant amount of surface water as far as our topsoil moisture is on up there. We've finally been able to build back some after this dry period that we had. And boy, it's sure been a good thing. Glad to hear some positive words from Trip. Vince and I get accused of being a little too pessimistic on these reports a lot of times, and I can tell y'all that I'm going to be pretty optimistic today, folks. I don't have anything bad I can think of to talk about other than the lack of hay supplies. I guess that is the fly in the ointment of my little ramblings today. Folks, hay is extremely, extremely short. I've had a couple of folks call looking for some hay in the last week. Had one gentleman call with a little bit of excess capacity. Going to repeat that call that I put out last time we recorded one of these news updates. Folks, if you've got some extra hay and you're looking to get rid of it, please get in touch with one of us, and we'll be more than happy to link you up with some people that really could use it. Alternatively, if you're in a bind on hay, hadn't been able to locate any, get in touch with us. You never know when something's going to come available. Sometimes they're not big deals. The last gentleman that I talked to had about 50 rolls that he thought he could spare. Well, 50 rolls can make a big difference to some folks. So anyway, on the hay front, just get in touch with us and everything. Wet is a word for sure, and the temperatures have finally moderated just a bit in my corner of the state. We've had a really cold winter, I guess. I don't know how it stacks up as far as the numbers, but I can tell you that observationally it's been cold. And everything. The winter forages are starting to look good. They're starting to come on, and boy, they can't be too soon on that. A lot of people are grazing pretty heavy right now. A lot of people are overgrazing some winter forages right now just because they don't have a choice. And so both these guys have talked about giving tips on nitrogen fertilization and kind of tending to those winter forages. And I don't need to plow over ground that's already been turned, so to speak. The most optimism, the most positive thing I can talk about today is, of course, this cattle market. Folks, it is red hot. It is on fire. We're approaching record levels on most all fronts, but especially on this calf market, on all the way up to these feeder cattle market. Now, as being stated, the futures markets is down just a little bit right now. Time of recording of this update, our fat cattle market for February was trading somewhere around 179, and feeder cattle, which is a March contract, that's spot month on that, was at 242 there and abouts. Down pretty hard, feeder cattle were at the time of this recording, but that doesn't matter because these futures markets, folks, have just been disconnected from the live cattle market, from the cash cattle market, so to speak, and especially from these markets locally. So with that being said, I'll jump into our market update for this period. Remember this, we switched from, instead of going week to week on this, to every 2 weeks. So we mirror our frequency as far as recording these news updates, which is every 2 weeks. So this is the market as has been experienced the last 2 weeks. On 5 to 6 weight steers, 500, 600 pound steers, the averages were $2.02 all the way up to $2.87 per pound. 5 to 6 weight heifers, $1.87 to $2.54. Cull cows, 84 cents to $1.14. Cull bulls, $1.04 to $1.29 per pound. Average of the highs on your bred cows, $1,720.83. And average ranges on your pairs, $1,106 all the way up to $2,054 per pair. So we keep experiencing these steady climbs in these replacement cattle prices, and it ebbs and flows some as you get in a good set. One market report will have some good cattle represented. Some weeks it'll be more medium quality cattle, but by and large we're seeing these prices creep up on the replacement cows. I really think that we're going to see those prices continue to increase as we move forward in the spring, and as a lot of that volunteer winter forage, or a lot of volunteer ryegrass and clover comes online, people start realizing they've got a little more excess grass than what they have. I mean, folks, it doesn't matter what corner of the state you're looking at. We shed a ton of cows this past summer through the drought. I mean, you could argue about the time period, whether it started in the late spring of 23, but we know that we sold off a tremendous amount of our breeding stock of cows out in the country. And a lot of those folks maybe won't be coming back. They won't be buying back in, but a lot will. And those cattle are going to have to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is more likely than not going to be those local sale barns, maybe deals made out in the country, so on and so forth. Anyway, I digress. As far as how this report stacked up compared to last time, on the 5 to 6 weight steers, the prices were 7.47% higher than the last report. 5 to 6 weight heifers, 12.5% higher. Cull cows, 10.6% higher. And cull bulls, 9.9% higher. I can't forecast what's going to happen in the future, folks, but I can tell you that, barring some tragedy, market's going to ebb and flow just a little bit as it naturally does. But there's a lot of market fundamentals at work due to the inventory. We had a fairly non-impactful USDA inventory report come out in January. It continued to show about a 2% decrease in all cattle, and so on and so forth. It wasn't anything, it didn't rock the cattle market by any means. Everybody expected it. It was kind of fell in line with what we expect. So anyway, finally wrap up. I've got a couple more things and I'll wrap up. Tripp mentioned the Northeast District show. We had our Northwest District Livestock show. We rolled out a new event this year, a pen of 3 commercial heifer show and sale. That's an unhaltered pen of cattle show, and we sold the cattle the next day. It was held at Red River Livestock down at Armistead. Had a really good show and a surely a good sale on that. Miss Addison Sally from DeSoto Parish was able to win the grand champion in the bred division. And so we really had a good show on that. Had a lot of good exhibitors who are also producers, and so we really appreciate all of them. And Miss Taylor Register from DeSoto Parish won the open division, was grand champion on open division. Look forward to having that next year, by the way. And I end up on the note that we're signing up for a Master Cattleman class. Currently, it's going to be in DeSoto Parish. We're going to start on February the 27th. Had a few people sign up, need some more folks out there. So if you're in DeSoto Parish and listen to this news update, if you're not asleep by this time of my report, then call and get signed up. Deadline to sign up is February the 23rd, folks. So you got a little time, but go on and give us a call and tell us you want to sign up. With that being said, I'll turn it back over to you, Ashley.
Thank you. And that's the perfect segue for me. So events coming forward, Lee and Tripp have mentioned their Master Cattleman. So we have 4 classes coming up this year for sure. So the Northwest region in Grand Cane, the Northeast. Why is that? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the website in the Northeast. I need to fix that because it still says Lincoln Parish. The Northeast is not going to be in Lincoln Parish. It's going to be in West Carroll Parish. The flyer and everything is correct on there. So if you go to our website that I have linked, it's fixed, and I'll get my table fixed. But Northeast region will be in West Carroll Parish. Sorry, Tripp. So that'll be in Oak Grove. The Central region is going to be having one in Opelousas, starting in April. And then the Southeast will be having one starting in August. So I have that linked for y'all that you can go in and click on that. I'll get the Northeast one fixed, but again, that's going to be in Oak Grove. So the flyers and the registration forms for all 4 of those classes are on there. And then as well as their contact information for the agents that are hosting those. Moving on, again, to touch on some of the other events that we've mentioned before. There's going to be a pesticide recertification in Lafourche Parish in Raceland on January 24th. There's one at 12:30 and one at 6. Y'all, I know that there are pesticide recertifications going on throughout the state. I just don't have all of them with me. Randy Lynn just asked me to go ahead and mention hers. We've been talking about the breeding soundness exam that's going to be coming up in Opelousas on February 22nd. And I've got Lanie, Brittany, and Mr. Mike's contact information for that to sign up your bulls there. Again, we're getting ready to go into breeding season. To complement that, there's going to be one in Lake Charles on March 2nd. And so Bradley and Jimmy's contact information is there for that. Again, the Acadiana Spring Field Day will be at the Iberia Research Station on Saturday, March 16th. We have that flyer circulating. If you'd like a copy of the flyer, just reach out to me and I'll get that to you. There will be a BQA, Beef Quality Assurance Certification in Raceland, so Lafourche Parish, on April 10th. Randy Lynn's contact is listed here. I'm leaving our AI class listed for the Hill Farm, but we are slam-packed, double booked. There's a lot. So realize that if you contact us about the AI class at the Hill Farm coming up in April, you probably won't get in this year, but let us know so we can keep you on that list as a just in case. We'll have one in Alexandria in October, but we keep that wait list going and we contact those people each year. So go ahead and get on it and let us know if you're interested in that. And then the Northwest Beef and Forage Field Day will be Thursday, April 25th at the Red River Research Station in Bossier, and we'll get more information out on that soon. So we've got a busy spring, y'all. I'm excited about it. As they've all said, the district shows have gone really well over the last 2 weeks. We are gearing up to see everybody in Gonzales. I know I'm packing up for my 10 days or whatever it is that I'm there, and getting ready. So we will see everybody hopefully in Gonzales, and wish good luck to all of those exhibitors, and everyone else. We'll be back with y'all in a couple weeks.